Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Thank you so much for being with us as always. I appreciate you. Of course, we're powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just reach out to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. And the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal awards, the first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app in either the Apple App Store or Google Play today, where unhinged fans get unreal rewards. Just go to the link.ag.fan/ISB media or download it on one of those two sources, as previously mentioned. Zach Osterman from Indy Star will be with us today. J.D. Campbell, the former SID basketball sports information director for Indiana, will be joining us as well. Maybe getting Michael Mangarelli on as well to talk about the recent settlement with the NCAA. And we'll talk about some transfers already, as some guys that pulled out of the transfer or out of the NBA draft and have already made their transfers known. How are you guys doing? Appreciate you. Whether you're hitting us up on 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call in Evansville, or our friends in Fort Wayne on 1380, The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. Make sure you stay tuned after Indiana Sports Beat for the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Hope everybody is doing well there. And, of course, up in the region on the Voice of the Region, 1230 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB. How are you? And one of the shoes has already fallen from withdrawals from the NBA draft. Jackson Robinson pulls his name out of the hat and transfers to Kentucky. Jackson Robinson, the Big 12 sixth man of the year, and one of the best available transfers in college basketball, made Kentucky fans sweat on Wednesday night and then rejoiced yesterday after allowing the 11:59 NBA draft withdrawal deadline to come and go without making a formal announcement. He finally revealed his plan to return to college and transfer from BYU, where Mark Pope came from, where he was the leading scorer for a 23-win NCAA tournament team that Pope played for or coached last year. So that will be that should be a seamless transition for him. So Mark Pope already relining things there, and it's going to be interesting to see how the area teams, both Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, they're all going to be, and even Purdue for that matter, all going to be different teams. Purdue, not so much because of new players, although they are bringing in as many new players as anybody, except for they're all freshmen. So all of these teams are with 6 or more new faces, and that includes Purdue. They're just doing it the old-fashioned way. How are you doing? Appreciate you, whether you're and all of those hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. We're going to hear from Kurt Signetti today as well, as he spoke the other night at Huber's a couple of nights ago. So looking forward to hearing from him. How's everybody else doing? John Boy, how are you doing? I hope you're ready for the weekend. It is Friday.
Another beautiful weekend hopefully coming our way. I don't really know what it's going to be like, but we've had some really nice days the entire week. So yeah, hopefully a good weekend ahead.
Also, big news for Indiana fans. The TBT team adds another member as Yogi Ferrell will
That
be
is
joining
right.
that. This is a loaded squad. I mean, they're taking their time getting the guys lined out, but so far it's been just a loaded player after another. Yogi Ferrell, another former NBA player that is joining that team. So they're going to be doing pretty well. It's going to be fun to see those guys play together. That I'm telling you, I'm going to be shocked if Indiana fans are not just soaking those tickets up. And you might want to start getting your tickets if you have plans to go watch that at Hinkle Fieldhouse here coming up in July. I know I'm looking forward to just seeing the whole thing. You've got the Purdue team, the Butler team, Indiana, of course, putting their first team together. Christian Watford kind of the guy behind the scenes on that. But now you've got Devontae Green, Yogi Ferrell. I don't know if I have them all memorized. Troy Williams, Juwan Morgan, and I'm missing one just off of memory. But they've got more guys to add to that. But that's a heck of a starting point that they've got going. Haven't seen Yogi play in a bit. He's probably been overseas. So we'll see how that goes. But hope everybody's doing well all around. Tanis up in Fort Wayne. Appreciate you as well. Heading into the weekend, questions. What are questions as we head into the weekend? The things that you'd like to talk about. I do still want to talk about the NCAA settlement, and hopefully we can get Michael on to. He's our resident legal expert as being a former NCAA attorney. So, I'm just looking at some Miller Kopp. Thank you, Five. Miller Kopp, the other one. I have to write all those down to keep up with them, but it's going to be very interesting to see that. And last night I was answering a question in regards to Mike Whitson's, I guess you call it presser, before the outing at Huber's the other night as far as philosophy. And I'm like, he's had a tendency to stick with his two bigs, and there's no doubt the talent is there for him to go in a number of different ways this year, and that is going to be dictated by the guard play, and the guard play, of course, is going to be a much more abundant as far as the options, with Kanan Carlisle and Miles Rice being additions, along with Luke Goody, who's not really a guard. He's probably more of a three, but there are just so many options because there's nothing but questions. There's more questions rather than answers, I guess you should say. How do they run? How's he going to run them? Who are they going to run? Miles and Carlisle and Rice together? Does Trey Galloway come back healthy to start the season? Does Gabe Cupps make a leap? Ja'Kai Newton, another X factor. What does he make this? Does he come in ready to have an intricate role? I'm expecting a continued, I should say, improved Mackenzie Mbako as he really started finding his groove at the end of the season. I think he's going to hit the ground running from where he left and pick right up there. And that's just going to give you so much more options. And if it's Carlisle and Rice, can they push a faster tempo using someone like Mbako or Goody or Does Bryson Tucker, is he ready to take on an integral role as a freshman? There's so many questions, and then you've got to manage the bigs in with all this. So I am not going to pretend to think I know anything in regards to that when we've got 4.5 months away from the beginning of the season. So they'll be going at it all summer and working together, but there should be no lack of options for Indiana in that regard. Bill said he'd like to see Woody get Coleman Hawkins, and yeah, that would be a great addition, no doubt. But I just thinking about all the things that I just said, I don't know where all the minutes are going to come from now. That's a lot of guys that are spreading a lot of minutes out. Yeah, I mentioned Ja'Kai Newton. He's an X factor. We don't even know how well he's going to be able to hit the ground. Is he going to be able to hit the ground running? Which there's no reason to think that he won't be able to, but we haven't seen him, so we don't know what level of contribution he's going to be able to put forth with these guys. So there's just so many questions. Hey, Fulzon jumping on from Amon Jordan. Haven't seen you for a minute, but great to see you. But yeah, there's just more questions than answers right now, but it's all goody. Oh, I'm sorry. It's all good. Haha. But no, seriously, the problems, quote unquote, problems that Woodson has right now, they're all good. They're just a ton of options. How are you going to manage these options? And that's not something that he's really had to deal with in his time at Indiana. You're starting off, you had Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis, and of course, that was a mix with Xavier, but those were two guys, and that was about as deep as it went in that role there. But now you are truly, truly deep at virtually every position. I don't know if they can. Do you consider them deep at the big man spot with Ballo and Langdon Hatton? Those are two completely different guys there. Langdon Hatton is a tall center that can step out and shoot the ball, where Ballo is just going to be playing in the post and grinding it out down there. Renew, while I know does not probably want to play the five much, he may slip into it, or it may not be so much him playing in the five at times, where you could just have a smaller lineup. And I think that's something else that Woodson mentioned the other night. And by smaller, I just mean quicker, not necessarily having a pair of twin towers. You just have a big and four guys that can go and all shoot. So, yeah, Brian says Ballo and Hatton on the court at the same time could be interesting. Yeah, that was mentioned the other night, and I'll mention it again. But because Hatton, he can step out and shoot, so that another option, and that's exactly what I mean. That's not the buddy ball of old school there. That's a different type. But got to wait and see. Don't know how these guys are come around, and especially come around together. That is the key there. Man, we've got a lot coming up. Zach Osterman will be joining us later. J.D. Campbell as well. And we'll hear from Kurt Signetti. Appreciate you being with us. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards. The first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app in either the Apple App Store or Google Play today. Autograph, where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards. Use the ISB media code. Back with plenty more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
I sent Mangarelli an email. I don't know if
I
He has
sent him a
time,
text.
but I did send him. I sent him the link in case he's able to join at any time. I've got Signetti sound too. Him talking about.
You probably can run that whole thing because it's only like a minute long.
No, I've got one of the other full ones that's posted elsewhere, but it's not. I mean, I still want the full, and the one that was uploaded from us isn't. I mean, I don't mean to say this over the air, but I don't really have a choice. It's just not the best quality.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, perfect.
But the one that I have is someone asked him about Curtis Rourke and Taven Jackson. It's not terrible quality, but the one I have up is better. Hey, what are we doing, Brian? That's what that reminds me of. Just hearing in the background.
Hey, what the hell are we doing, Brian?
See if I can pull that up real quick during commercial.
That's just funny. It never
Where's that at?
doesn't make me laugh.
Here it is.
Hey, what in the hell are we doing, Brian?
Calling and complaining about kids playing basketball in the street. Believe it? I don't know who called them. Obviously, I ain't got no problem with it. I think. I ain't real good at that. I feel like NBA night.
Ironically, my memory popping up on my phone from 6 years ago today. Tom Allen at Huber's.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I tried to reach out to Devontae, but that was a little.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. Yeah, I've got Signetti if you want to use it here.
Around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It's Friday, and it's going to be an absolutely stunningly gorgeous Friday. Chamber of Commerce weather all around the Hoosier land. Appreciate you being with us. Thank you so very much. Plenty to get to today. Indiana baseball. We'll talk about that in a second as they knock things off in the NCAA tournament today. Looking forward to that. And don't forget the MyBoard golf outing coming up on June 20th. I don't have the information pulled up handily, but let me see if I can get that quickly. If for those of you looking for a golf outing to play in, up just right up the road in Mooresville at is it Heartland? I'm trying to go off of memory. Heartland Crossing, located right at Heartland Boulevard in Canby, but right outside of Mooresville. Looking forward to that. You get free lunch, games all over the place, your normal contests going on everywhere. You get a best dressed team trophy, best dressed sponsor trophy. But if you can hit on that, that would be something fun to participate in. And you can registration at Eventbrite. And I'm looking for the link, and I'll find that in a little bit, but we'll get that pulled up. Thank you, Cheryl. Don't forget, brought to you by the Chop Shop Market and Table, home of the Indiana men's and women's basketball coaches, along with the football coaches shows. They are also your local meat shop, steakhouse, and caterer, no matter where you live. They offer a great sit-down dining experience for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, where you can even pick out your own steak from the on-site butcher, choose from their incredible dinner specials. Their butcher shop offers quality meats like locally sourced Wagyu steak, seafood, and more. Don't miss out on their daily in-house made bakery items as well. It's all incredible. Whether you're coming through town for the kids at school or you live in Bloomington, always a great place to go, and the spot. As a matter of fact, I'm heading there today to pick up some steaks. It is the spot. How are you? How's everything going? Plenty going on this weekend. Like I said, Indiana baseball is ready to get going today in the Knoxville Regional, where they'll be taking on the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers. Not the easiest route, but that means Indiana was probably the last or next to last team to get in the tournament. But their quest to get back to the College World Series for just the second time in program history, it begins today down south. Joining Indiana in that regional are, of course, as I mentioned, the number 1 overall seed, Tennessee Volunteers, Southern Miss, and Northern Kentucky. Can they, is this an upset that they can pull off? It would take some luck. It would probably take some help from somebody else as well. But Tennessee enters the NCAA tournament as the field's top overall seed following a season that saw the Volunteers win the SEC tournament. That's like winning the American League Championship Series at the very least. The Volunteers hit .311 as a team. That's a top 20 mark in the country. Tennessee also finished the season 8th in doubles with 136. So hitting the ball is not a problem for Tennessee. I wonder if they've been using orange balls. But no other team in the country slugged more home runs than Tennessee this past season. You know, it wasn't that long ago. Indiana was a team putting a lot of the dingers over the fence. Well, Tennessee is, and pitching has been up and down for this Indiana team. So we'll see. Not so much for Tennessee. Their staff, 3.8 total ERA. That's not bad, but we'll see how it takes off. I think that's at the Volunteers open against Northern Kentucky this evening at 7, and that's some colorful uniforms Southern Miss is wearing. Southern Miss coming via the Sun Belt Conference, 41-18 on the year. That's not bad at all. The Norsemen of Northern Kentucky, coming from the Horizon League, of course, and in Indiana, joining the fray. So we'll see what they can get done. But it's not on that's probably not on the Big Ten Network. What is that going to be on TV wise? That's a good question, John.
Most of these are on the ESPN family of networks. I don't know exactly which ones Indiana will be on today, but yeah, they won't be on regional conference networks for the tournaments.
No, they will not. And but 1 o'clock, they'll be throwing it off the mound there. So I'll be checking that out. Looking forward to it. So good luck to the Hoosiers today as they knock things off in the NCAA baseball tournament, which is always a fun thing to watch. We got that, and you got the Little League tournament that comes up later in the summer, which is, I don't know if there's a funner summer sports event to watch in the Little League World Series. It's just always entertaining, and looking forward to that taking off later on this summer. So we got that going for us, which is nice. So we're looking forward to doing that. Kickoff for Indiana's first 3 games, football games, has been announced. With the season just kind of, it's going to sneak up on you. We got June, July, August, fall camp will be in full throat, and September, actually, I think the first game is what, August 31st. So it will not. Everybody kept saying, "I can't believe it's May." It's I can't believe it's June. Hey, that means right around the corner is football season. So the first iteration of Kurt Cignetti's football program at Indiana is right around the corner. And we had the opportunity to talk to Kurt Cignetti at Huber's the other night. And here's one of his responses.
There's competition at every position. So, and it makes you better. And, Curtis is new to the program, but I have a lot of confidence in him. He's played a lot of games. He's executed a lot of 2-minute drives. He's thrown a lot of critical touchdown passes. He knows how to throw the ball away when he's in a bad spot, get you back to manageable down and distance. And, he's an older guy. And I think Taven made strides in the spring, and there's some areas everybody's got to improve still. But, Taven's got some areas that we're confident he'll progress. And, then we've got the young guys.
That was a brief bit from Kurt Cignetti the night. His first appearance at Huber's. I wonder what his I should have asked him afterwards what he thought about that, but he had a long autograph line. Both he and Mike Whitson signed a ton of autographs afterwards the other night, and he was as amenable as anybody during that session. So that was fun to see. And then the players that were all in attendance. Miles Rice was down there, and there was a couple of football players. Anthony Leal was also there, as well as a few from the women's team. So I'm sure everyone seemed to enjoy that, and they got to enjoy the old-fashioned fried chicken dinner at Huber's. So there was that. But it's football season, man, right around the corner. We keep talking about all this stuff that's going on coming up this summer. We've got we just finished up an unbelievably busy month of May with all the things that went on, and we go into June with the All-Star action, the boys and girls All-Stars in Kentucky, Indiana, All-Star Series, the juniors and the seniors, all of that coming up next week. It's right upon us. A little bit of a break, but the AAU comes back. You've got the championships for both the EYBL and the 3SSB that will be happening right after that. And then that kind of rolls right in to fall football camp. So, and don't forget TBT is in there as well. So no rest for the weary, as it will continue to roll on through the summer. But yeah, the kickoff TV times for Indiana's first 3 games have been designated. The Hoosiers' first road game of the season comes in week 3. They'll travel out west, but before that, a couple of non-con home games. The first year, this is also the 2024 campaign, is the first year of the Big Ten's new media deal, with a handful of games being televised on NBC. Indiana will begin its season with a home game on August 31st versus Florida International. They've had an on and off deal with those guys for a while. That goes back to the Tom Allen, and as a matter of fact, I think Indiana was playing Florida International on the road during Michael Penix Jr.'s freshman year? Because I think I remember wondering, will we see Michael Penix Jr. as a freshman? I don't think we did in that game, but that goes back quite a few years. But that game will be on the Big Ten Network. Kickoff set for 3:30. The following week, Indiana will host Western Illinois at Memorial Stadium for the second of 8 home games. That game is a night game, 7:30 p.m. on a Friday. Friday games, man. Don't dig them. Don't dig them at all. The night game part of it's is cool, but yeah. Why?
I will say this though, when you have your following game week 3 in California, the fact that you're playing your game before a day early kind of gives you a little bit of extra rest before that. So I would say if you're one of the players, it's probably in your favor for that to happen.
Well, yeah, I would be interested to see what. Normally, that is exactly the case, John, and I agree with you. It's not so much as a day of rest; it might be another day of practice because that will precede the first big game of the season, the first Big Ten game of the season, the first game against former Pac-12 teams of the season. So a lot of firsts coming with that. But yeah, you're right. That the cross-country trip, although, I've said that, and then I've said we've seen a couple of years ago, I remember Vanderbilt traveled all the way to Hawaii and obliterated Hawaii. And it was Vanderbilt, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, those first 2 games, home games. Second one is the Friday night game. And then the third one, as we're talking about, they on the road to the Rose Bowl. The first time since 1968, Indiana will play in the Rose Bowl as a facility, not the game. I meant to shut the window here. Always enjoying the fresh air, that full, cool, crisp air this morning, but don't want to have any outside noise coming in. The following week slated, that's also a 7:30 game, but that returns back to a Saturday, the 14th.
No noon kickoffs for the first 3 weeks for Indiana. It seems pretty out of the ordinary, I feel like, for Indiana football.
Yes, it seems like virtually all of their games were noon kickoffs, minus a few 3:30 ones. But yeah, you're right. So you get the extra day and a night game on the West Coast, which that's 7:30 time, though. That's Eastern time. So
when you're thinking Pacific, it'll be about 4:30. I'd say playing a noon game on the West Coast would have been, I don't want to say an automatic, death sentence for Indiana, but that would have been like playing at 9 a.m. for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, not good. But the 7:30 kickoff, that's
it's virtually like playing at the same time as your home opener at 3:30, just an hour difference if you're going.
And it doesn't get terribly hot out there, so even though that's going to be in the heat of the day out there, being at 4:30 on Pacific Coast time, I don't think it should be that warm. And plus, you're coming out of August weather here, so it'll probably be cooler out in California at 4:30 than it would be, say,
very well could be
6:30 here. But those are the first 3 games for Indiana's football season. I'm telling you, the game against UCLA is a winnable game by Indiana, and that's without me knowing.
I'll throw this out there real quick. Our friend Jeffrey the Greek released his way too early Big Ten standings, or predictions, I guess, if you will, for the upcoming season. He listed UCLA and Indiana as the bottom 2 teams, with UCLA being the worst, according to him. And again, it's just predictions, and sometimes people can be way off on those, but it could be a battle of last place. I mean, not, and again, it's just kind of jokes and fun, but
that's mainly because, and I understand it, though, for those outside of the Indiana coverage, Jeffrey doesn't really work in the media, but he knows Big Ten football as well as anybody. But that's, to me, that's taken Indiana for being what they have been, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Until they change that mantra, until they change that mindset of people, that's how it's going to be. Indiana is not going to be a last place team. That I can tell you. I think that they're set to be better than, let's say, Purdue, whose staff is in their second year. And as a matter of fact, I've seen predictions from other national outlets that the over-under for Indiana already is like 5.5.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be, truthfully, I think that it's going to be 7. I think the over-under for me is 6. I think they make a bowl game at a minimum, but the opportunity will be there to win 7, even 8 games, as crazy as that sounds. I know that sounds pipe dreamish or homerish, and it's not the intent, but the schedule is set up for them. Not only is the schedule set up with 8 home games, you have teams like UCLA, who's also in flux, new coach, new everything. They're going through a complete change. That's whether whichever team, but between those two teams wins that battle. But there are also other teams like Washington who will come to Bloomington to play. Also, they've lost the bulk of what you saw last year with Michael Penix Jr. and Roma Dunze and all these guys. They're gone, baby. They're gone. Kalen DeBoer, gone. Their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, gone. All of that is gone. Not that their new coach that came in from Arizona is not good. It's just new. They're new as well. So there's no advantage there. I give the advantage to Indiana for being at home, and that's deeper in the season. I can't remember how deep into the season that game is, but that's at least like 5, 6, 7 games into the season when that happens.
Yeah, I think it's about game 7 or game 8, around there. So
Indiana they should have their sea legs by then under Kurt Signetti. So I'm not looking ahead. It's hard to look ahead, to be quite honest with you, with complete knowledge, because things are always ever changing. But don't judge Indiana football on Indiana's past this season. And all the things that I've said about the other teams about being in flux with new coaching staffs and all that, of course, you can say that very same thing for Indiana. They're obviously with a new coaching staff. But the difference is, I don't know that any other staff that has changed at least has the continuity of the staff that is brought in, because it's virtually the same staff that he had. So there's that. We've got to take a break before I forget. Yeah. We're brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore. For those of you looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her at IndyHomePros.com. And don't forget that the Mybor golf outing coming up at what did I say? Outland Crossing. You can go to the Mybor golf outing at High Street in Mooresville. Let's see. S. James at savingsbank.com. And you can send payment that way. And we'll get that link up to you as well later. But that's a great golf event that I played in like 3 different times. And we'll look forward to that. More coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home,
I'm with you on that, Indiana being placed second to last. I think a
All
lot of
that's
people
spoken.
see it as, oh, Indiana probably lost everybody, and they didn't. They really added more than they subtracted when it comes to the transfer portal.
They added more than say they subtracted simply by the coaching staff. You could stop right there. I mean, they have elevated themselves exponentially simply because of that.
Yeah.
Simply because of the decisions being made now, the organization of a football program. I'll now they're in a much better. The quarterback situation is exponentially better, and that includes with one of the guys returning in Taven Jackson, who has gotten better.
The one thing that I hope that this regime doesn't get known for, I hope it's not Kevin Wilson 2.0. And what I mean by that is, and I liked Kevin Wilson, but I don't want these games to be 49-45. You know what I mean? I hope this defense is
Well, it won't be
manageable.
if that happens. That's not because of the inability to put focus on defense, because that's again, I think Kurt Cignetti is a well-rounded. Go back and look at his record.
And I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that, but that's what I hope. That's my fear of what this.
Well, but
could be
if that's the case, though, it won't be because of the reason it was before. The reason it was before is because it was just an all-offensive program. That's all they focused on. That's not the case now already. I can tell you that as a fact. It's an equal opportunity, but I think the offense is going to be quick striking. They're going to have big playability. They're going to have big playability, but they're also going to have a line that can get the job done. They're going to be able to run the ball as well as throw the ball. And that balance is going to be huge. Having balance and big strike ability, bam.
Yeah.
That keeps the defense on their heels.
All right, here we go. We'll have about 10 minutes here in this third segment.
So we don't know when JD's coming on.
JD's second hour. We talked. I like you booked him for 9:50.
Okay,
something like that.
Sure. 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Courtney, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, getting you ready for the weekend. Kind of a weekend off. Finally, no Indy 500, no lead up to the Indy 500, no AAU action that has to be covered, no Derby, no PGA. So it's kind of a quieter weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie to you.
And that's perfect timing, because I know we talked about football being right around the corner. If you look at the calendar, we are exactly 3 months away from Indiana football's kickoff against Florida International on August 31st.
Yeah, I know 3 months is 3 months. That's 25% of the year, but golly.
Even before that, though, in July, I don't know the dates off the top of my head. I know that it's towards the end of July usually, but Big Ten football media days probably about 2 months away from today.
That's in July. Yeah.
Are those going to be in Indianapolis again, or is it in a very obscure location?
It's a good question. Well, it won't be obscure. It'll be either Indianapolis or Chicago, but I'm going to guess Indianapolis, just because it has worked so well at Lucas Oil Stadium with being able to do everything. Part of it is being the ability to have it all on the field.
That's right. It is in Lucas Oil Stadium, July 23rd through 25th.
So, and now it's there's going to be so much more going on because of these additional teams that are added. That's going to be interesting to talk to UCLA, to talk to USC, to talk to Oregon, to talk to Washington. You've got new coach at Washington, new coach at UCLA, and then the man at USC bringing in some. It's going to be an exciting year.
They've already got day designations for each team. As a matter of fact, Indiana and Kurt Signetti and whatever players he chooses to bring along, they'll be showing up on the final day of Big Ten Media Days on July 25th, along with Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington.
Boy, it sounds like they're just pretty much going alphabetically there.
Oh, and that's listed alphabetically, but again, that's July 25th. There's 2 other days of media days that include the other, I guess, what would it be? 12 teams?
Well, there's 18 total.
There's 6 on each day, it looks like. And so, yeah, there's 18 teams in the league now.
3 days. It's 3 days now.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Indiana's on the final day.
Holy smokes. That's a lot. But it'll be fun. Looking forward to that. The Dallas Mavericks reach the NBA Finals. They'll take on, and you know what? Everyone was always had been talking about the Celtics and how they were just kind of rolling through things. Dallas is looking kind of good right now. Luka Doncic, he's on a heater. They take down Minnesota, who had been playing pretty well, and Boston's been sitting. I'm going to take Dallas in that series. And of course, the Indiana grad Mark Cuban, Mavericks owner, but I think the Mavericks have just, and probably not a team a lot of people would have picked before the tournament started, but they have just kind of lit things up. So they'll face the Celtics. That begins on Monday after the weekend's over, but I just I think that this they're on a roll. And I think that continues. We'll see. It ought to be pretty good finals to watch. Looking forward to that. But Luka Doncic, he's the man. He's got it going on right now, and I think that they have won their past 5 games on the road, a streak that started with a game 2 win over the original number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder. So they've taken down the number 1 seed on their side. They took down Minnesota. I'm going with Dallas. No doubt on my pick. Whether I'm right or not, we will find out. But I think that it should be fun to watch. And I used to not really be into NBA basketball, and sometimes I'm still not. But the playoffs, it gets kind of fun. Watching some highlights from the game clinching win for the Mavs against Minnesota, and your boy Snoop Dogg was in the end zone enjoying the play, and I think somebody was chatting with him and he was kind of laughing, but good to see that. What with this open weekend, man, what do people have planned? Yeah, we're also pointing out that Boston should be healthy by now though, so that absolutely makes a difference. But looking for what's heading up this weekend. Is that a homer call because of Mark Cuban? Yeah, no, I don't cover the Mavs, so I don't think that So no is my answer to that. That's just I'm just picking the Celtics because I think they're playing better. But the health of the Mavs, but the health of the Celtics, that's true. They've been getting some rest. That matters immensely. So maybe that's going to be what they needed. Who knows? But looking forward to that. Man, I am looking forward to talking to JD Campbell today, former sports information director for men's basketball at Indiana University. Haven't had him on for quite some time. Also, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, as we'll get caught up with him. And trying to get Michael Mangarelli on to go over this NCAA agreement that has come about that still leaves a ton of questions. It's just like Indiana men's basketball, except for the difference is there's with Indiana basketball, there's more questions than answers, but I think that those are all good situations. Mike Woodson is going to have a ton of options this year, and it's just going to be being able to find the right recipe. How are you going to run the guards? Are you going to run Kane and Carlisle and Miles Rice together, or if Trey Galloway is healthy, how does he blend in? Because that's going to be a part of that mix. If Gabe Cupps has improved, where does he find himself in there? Ja'Kai Newton is an X factor. Well, it's just there's so many things that you don't know. And
I saw a lineup projection yesterday, and I think if Trey Galloway is healthy, this is what I can see Mike Woodson likely going to in game one when it comes to the guards. I think you'll see Miles Rice playing the point, and I think you'll see Trey Galloway move back over to the 2, and I think Kane and Carlisle will come off the bench for that point guard role. Because I don't think Trey Galloway is going to stick to that point. I mean, he had some good numbers with assists last year, so I could be dead wrong about this. But I think we're going to see Trey Galloway move over to more of a 2 guard this year.
Yeah, but he's not a 2 guard. He's not, at least unless his shooting has greatly improved. The whole role of a number 2 guard is to score.
And I agree with you, but I don't think Kane and Carlisle necessarily fits that bill any more so than Trey Galloway does. And I think Galloway, before he got thrust into that point guard spot last year, he had good shooting numbers. They weren't astronomical, but I do think that if he doesn't have to focus on the point guard role anymore, or at least to a much more minimal extent, I think you'll definitely see improvement when it comes to his shooting. Again, just my thoughts. I could be way off on that, but I think that's what we'll see from Galloway.
5 thinks that Carlisle should not be coming off of the bench, and I can't say that I disagree with that. I think you have to put the best of the best out there, but I didn't see Galloway shooting the ball well personally, especially from deep, and that is one of the things Indiana has not had and that you absolutely need. So that's my wondering is, all right, how does Trey Galloway fit into that situation? Because if he's not playing point, because he's not a big time scorer from the outside in regards to shooting, but there are going to be so many differences with personnel that it's how are you going to manage it? How are you going to manage the bigs then and with it? How does Hatton play a part into this? Because he's the guy that can play down low but step out. Where Ballo, he's not stepping out. He'll be down low only. Renew, I know that he's going to probably mainly be at the 4. How do you run that together? Mackenzie Mbako, expecting improvement out of him. Russell keeps asking who was he playing with out in LA. I don't know. I haven't asked, and personally, I don't. I mean, I don't mean this to sound bad. I don't care because it's what just working to improve. If he's improved, that is going to be a huge thing for that offense, giving them a much more lethal outside shooting weapon. You've got Luke Goody, who we know that can shoot from outside, but he's not going to be he's not going to be playing 20 minutes a game. But having someone being able to step in for 8-10 minutes, but that you can count on to knock it down from the outside, that's something different. I agree with Five Lefts. Gallo is more of a creator, not a shooter, so that leaves him at kind of a hybrid point guard. I don't really think of him as a point guard, but I don't think of him as a two, so he's somewhere in between, which that would allow you to, again, more options. The options are crazy, but we've got to take a break. And joining us afterwards, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, the JD Campbell coming along after that. And we'll be back with plenty more, brought to you by our friends at Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Whether it's 20 t-shirts for this summer's family reunion or 200 for the upcoming baseball or softball leagues, Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts work with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store of your very own for your custom-designed apparel and promotional merchandise. From large corporations to small businesses, high school sports teams to national accounts, Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Back with Zach Osterman after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for
Trey Galloway is an interesting piece because here
I
I'm torn
agree
between realizing that there's probably better talent than him. At least
There's not probably. There's
well, we don't.
there
I mean,
is.
Kane and Carlisle is honestly, I feel like they're very similar style players. But here's the thing: Woodson's always been loyal to Galloway, and that's why I don't know what his role is gonna be.
Carlisle is way more athletic.
Yeah, but that's not really what I'm comparing them. I'm talking about more so with their style of game.
Yeah, I like that's what I'm saying. I like to see him go smaller. And I know a lot of people don't like. I don't think you need to see Ballo and Renew on the floor at the same time. Personally,
that's true. That would be a very vast difference in style for Woodson if he goes that route.
Yeah, it would be shocking.
Because you may see at that point, Rice, Carlisle, and Galloway all on the floor, and then Ballo and maybe McKenzie and Baco. That'd probably be your lineup. Could be wrong on that, but
there's no point in me guessing at what Mike Woodson's going to do.
I know it's very tough to predict. But
if it were me, I'm thinking it was good. It would be Carlisle and Rice and Baco. He's probably going to start Renew. Does he start Renew over Ballo?
No, that's why I don't see him going a route where he does the 1 in 4 out. I don't see that happening. Because he isn't going to bench one for the other. I just don't see that happening.
Well, the 4 spot. Who's going to be?
That's why I mentioned Mbako. If you go small,
but
well, that's true because then you don't
lose
put Mbako over Renew. That's true.
You lose a lot though.
Yeah.
You.
I think it's almost a guarantee that Ballo and Renew are in the starting lineup together. I don't see a world where they're not.
Then that's the same old.
Zach says he's having computer issues, but he's trying to get on.
We can get JD. He said if anytime we need him, he can come on.
I'd send him a message, assuming Zach would be ready, that we'll be ready for him at 9:50. All right, here we go. StonecrestLiving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Zach is still trying to come on, if that's what you're asking. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. A beautiful Friday, absolutely. Ross says he's heading up in the morning for the Blue Angel show over in Terre Haute. So that should be fun. Haven't seen those guys for a few years. We were talking about potential starting lineups, and Brian says that neither Ballo or Renew are going to be happy campers coming off of the bench. Yeah, that has, whether you start or not, that's just all in name. Would you rather start and play 15 minutes or come off the bench and play 30? There's just a lot of ways that can go. But also the point of can you imagine bringing a player like Renew or Ballo off the bench? That's when you're the other team. Let's say you just dealt with Ballo for the last 10 minutes. Now he goes out and comes Renew. Well, things have not gotten easier defensively for that team. Again, so that's why there's just so many options for that team, for Mike Woodson and that team, if depending upon how he does it. And there's a lot of weapons that can be used if they're able to find their way onto the floor. It's a lot of minutes to spread around, without question. 5 says that too much negativity has been associated with the two big lineup because they haven't had the perimeter play to complement it. However, this year is different. But why? Now, what other team runs two bigs like that? I don't really know of one offhand, but Zach Osterman from the Indy Star working his way on to the program. Zachary, how are you, sir?
Sorry about that. This I don't know what it is about StreamYard links, but my email basically every time I connect to one, no matter what it is. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm looking forward to a quiet weekend. I was talking about this is like one of the first weekends I can recall in a minute that there's nothing really going on. I know we have IU baseball in the NCAA tournament, but that's kind of a more relaxed coverage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've talked about this before. This is the quietest time of year. It's kind of the last, I won't say it's the last calm before the storm, but you're starting to see football, basketball, women's basketball players filter onto campus. You'll get the other fall sports here pretty soon. Soccer, volleyball, etc. And I think we talked about this around Huber, but this is kind of the natural sort of turning of the page from the last athletic season to the next one. I know the academic year technically starts on July 1, but this is sort of like, climatological summer rather than, what do they call it? Like equinox summer or whatever it is. Calendar summer, basically. This is kind of where IU athletics and all athletics departments, just sort of naturally shift their focus to what's next. And it is almost certainly the quietest time of year. I think and we've talked about this before, but I think the one thing that's really changed about the summer months, and when I say summer, I basically mean everything from May 1 through, the end of football fall camp. I do think we talk less about basketball recruiting. Not that we don't talk at all about it, but because we had the portal, because you have all of these other storylines that come out of it, trying to figure out, hey, what's this team going to be about? Who are these players? What to expect? Obviously, just the physical act of putting the roster together. Because of all that, it's like we've kind of moved away from focusing quite so intensely on summer prep recruiting, except for those times when, you'll have a wave of official visits or the evaluation weekends and things like that. And so that almost feels like it's kind of tilted the calendar even a little bit more toward the spring and has left us with these sorts of gaps in the calendar where there just isn't a heck of a lot going on.
Absolutely. Fresh off of our trip down to Huber's, you were there. Zach was there as well, with all of the, for our first time talking to Mike Woodson in a bit, and our last for a while, same with Kurt Signetti. But we've been talking this morning about the fact that Mike Woodson, in my opinion, Mike Woodson is going to have a ton of different options this year that he just didn't have last year. And maybe his biggest challenge is finding which of those options are best or run the best, and how he's going to kind of marry that with his philosophy. And I'm like, wow, I could sit here for an hour and just talk about potential combinations of how you could run this. You've got Mackenzie Abako, who's expected to come back, picking up right where he left off and going forward. You got the addition of Omar Ballo, but Renew, are we gonna see more of that buddy ball type thing? But I think Indiana's got to get a little faster paced. They've got guards that can do that, but how are you going to mix in all of these guys? It's a lot of minutes to spread around too.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's number one. You're right. It is a lot of minutes to spread around. I think the flip side is, I think it's maybe not the worst thing if we get to the end of the season and Indiana doesn't have anybody in the Big Ten in the top 5 in minutes played. We've seen Indiana with that in the last couple of years. The way obviously Indiana had to count on Trace Jackson Davis, and that's one thing. Listen, Jackson Davis was one of the best big men the Big Ten seen in the last 10 years. You want him on the floor. He can be on the floor. He can be effective on the floor. But even last year, you think about the minutes numbers that Trey Galloway and Khalil Ware were logging by the end of the season, 34, 35, 37 minutes a game. That will wear you out. And I'm not suggesting, that Trey Galloway's injury was a product of wear and tear, but it's more just kind of the idea that, broadly speaking, you'll keep everybody healthier, you'll keep everybody fresher and fitter if you can move those minutes around a little bit more. And some nights, and that's not necessarily that the minutes averages will be the same every night, but more that, some nights you will need to, you will want to go a little bigger because, in Umar Ballo, I don't know if people appreciate yet the extent to which, I understand Indiana's had really good bigs since Mike Woodson came in. They've not had one like this. Ballo's game is mostly 6 feet and in at both ends of the floor. He's good in the pick and roll situations. We'll see if Indiana can maybe, get him a little bit more flexible or versatile defensively. But the flip side is, you're talking about a player that is as good as any in the country, maybe better than any in the country in terms of the whole package, 6 feet and in at both rims. And I'm talking about offensively and defensively. We talk so much about floor spacing. Mike Woodson mentioned this the other night. Omar Ballo can space the floor in a different way because he's so good at it. If you look at his Arizona film, getting down the floor quickly, getting low post position, sealing a defender before all 5 players are even down there and set up and whatever they're trying to do defensively. And suddenly, right off the bat, you're presented with essentially a, kind of a devil's bargain of, do you double the 7 foot, 260 pound big man who's an elite rim finisher because he's buried your post player, 3 feet from the rim in bad position. He's probably going to have to foul him. Or do you leave him alone and hope that he can defend without fouling? Because Indiana's not going to have necessarily, I don't think anyway. I mean, I don't think they're going to be, bombs away, but I don't think Indiana's going to have the problems from behind the 3-point line this year that it did last season, as long as everybody's relatively healthy. And my point in this is you're going to have some games where Indiana's going to want to run more too big stuff. That's just going to happen. You're also going to have some games where either because of circumstances like foul trouble or because of matchups, Indiana will want to go smaller. And Mike Woodson talked about that Wednesday as well, that with Luke Goody, with Mackenzie Mbaka, with Bryson Tucker, you can flip some lineups that maybe put multiple wings on the floor, obviously along with multiple guards, playmaking guards. That's the other piece of this too. Miles Rice's bona fides as a pick and roll playmaker, are pretty well established. We saw what Trey Galloway was able to do in the latter part of last, comfortable with the ball in his hands running Mike Woodson's offense. Kanan Carlisle, wound up kind of having to be a do-everything player for Stanford last season. I don't know if Indiana puts quite that much on him this winter, but the point is he can do it. And that's not even mentioning a Gabe Cupps or a Ja'Kai Newton, or the times where you might want to put the ball in someone like Mackenzie Mbako's hands to initiate the offense in a mismatch situation. You're right. It's going to be incumbent upon Mike Woodson to make sure that all these pieces get fitted into the right spots. But I think what he talks about, what you take away from when you listen to him, is he feels like he's got options. I've had people say to me since Huber on Wednesday night, and everybody saw the quotes and the tweets and the stories, it seems like Woodson's finally figured out that you need good guards to win. And I said, if you listen to the things he was saying last season, I think he knew he needed good guards to win. I just don't think he had them at the moment, largely because Xavier Johnson was hurt. Gabe Cupps was Indiana was probably having to put more on his plate than he was quite ready for, which is perfectly fine. He's a freshman. Most freshmen aren't Jalen Hood-Schifino. Most freshmen need a little time and can't be that player that plays 31 minutes a night and gives you 31 high-quality minutes as a point guard in particular. But I think Woodson looks around now and he's talking about these questions from a position of strength instead of weakness. And I do think it makes, the immediate future look very promising for Indiana.
Yeah, he's got depth at virtually every position, and there some of the depth we don't know about how good it's going to be. Ja'Kai Newton is an X factor. Is he ready to step in with an intricate role in this team? I don't know, because we haven't seen him play. You've got a freshman in Bryson Tucker. How game ready will he be as a freshman coming in? You got Luke Goody out there. So there's so many new faces on that periphery that can change things. That, again, I go back to the word options, but they should be able to withstand virtually every situation from a different team. Like you said, whether they have to go big, go smaller, depending upon the opposing lineup, or do you impose your will instead and make those teams try to match you?
And the thing is, you can do both. Even in the course of one game, I think I've used the Purdue comparison a lot. It's not apples to apples personnel wise, but Purdue got really good last season at, sort of knowing when to flip to smaller lineups. And then the counterpoint is knowing when to flip back to bigger ones and knowing when maybe it had the opportunity to say, now we're going to go a little bigger. We're going to go a little bit more Zach Edey, Trey Kaufman-Renn, but we're going to do it for a certain reason, whether it's defensively or it's because maybe, they had an opponent down 9, 10, 11 points. They were chasing the game. And so it's now, okay, well, you're the one who's got to make up ground on the scoreboard. We're going to put this, ultra efficient sort of two big offense in that can still hit some threes, but is also going to get a lot of high quality, high volume twos. That's going to make it harder for you to try and put a dent in this score line for the next 5 minutes, because we all know this. Basketball coaches tend to think about games just in media timeout segments, and just sort of like how do we win this timeout segment, and then we'll reassess, and how do we win this timeout segment, and then we'll reassess, and that's kind of coaching 101. No matter what sport you don't have some. In basketball, as an example, you don't have some 40-minute plan that you believe you're never going to deviate from. So it gives Woodson options, and it's always interesting to me. This isn't the first time I've heard Mike Woodson say this. I think that he places a lot of importance on these summer months. I think in his own mind, it's. And I don't know if this is maybe again part of his NBA background or just his approach as a coach. But I think in his own mind, I know it's limited workout time, but I think he sees these summer months as basically the months when it's it's sort of like, all right, I'm not, I think he thinks about it in terms of saying, like, I'm going to come with some ideas, and a rough sketch in my mind of what this team ought to look like. But I'm not really going to start filling in the details and really, shading in the colors and fine tuning things until I get them all together. And then I think he sees the summer as the time when he really can mold a lot of stuff into, the key pieces that he feels like he's going to need. I think that's when he makes a lot of early decisions about, this is what we're going to lean on early in the season. These players we're going to try and develop so that maybe January, February time, they're playing their best basketball. We're going to protect him because he's a freshman and he needs some work, but we're really going to kind of dive into him and see what we can get from him kind of day one, that kind of thing. And I think his approach is almost kind of like, and that will allow Indiana to sort of fine tune itself when you get to September and October, and maybe you are just drilling more down into actual season prep. And obviously Indiana's not going to be fully healthy. It sounds like if Trey Galloway does get cleared for full contact at any point this summer, it'll be late in the summer, and that's an important development because, as I said, we saw how good Galloway was for Indiana last year. He's a senior. He's a captain. He was, far and away Indiana's best playmaker last season. Now he's going to have a lot of help this year. I don't think Indiana's going to have to ask as much of him. But the flip side is that means he can try and impact the game in other ways, and you're just going to be better for having Trey Galloway on the floor if you're Indiana. But the balance of this team is going to be on the floor, working out together. If it hasn't already started, my guess is it probably really gets going in earnest next week. I think these are months that Mike Woodson places a real premium on.
Absolutely. It's the trying times to see who's who and who can actually do it when it comes down to it. Ja'Kai Newton, again, I mentioned him as an X factor, having not been able to play and sitting and watching, as a competitor that just has to eat at you. And if he is fully healthy and fully able to go, it's going to be interesting to see what contributions he can make and where he's going to impact the game.
Yeah, I love Newton in high school. I think a lot of it is just going to be health and fitness, fitness in terms of ultimately how much basketball has he played, in the last 2 years. And that's, that's not his fault. He's been dealing with injuries. But, these problems kind of stretch back to his senior year of high school. But anybody who saw him play in high school knows, he's, one of the things that really made his game stand out to me, both when I watched his film and when I saw him in person. He played on a really good high school team, not just a good AAU team. Lots of guys play with other high major, mid-major prospects in AAU. He played on a really good high school team. Obviously, Stephen Castle was on his team, but there were other, either high major or maybe you'd say like high major adjacent kind of prospects on his team. And then even the guys that were 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, in the rotation were still either mid or low major players. The point is that, he was playing on a team with a whole bunch of guys that were going to play college basketball somewhere. And he had the commendable and, sometimes I thought remarkable ability to just kind of fit himself into whatever his team needed on a given night. He could be, you'd have one night where he'd score 22 points. He'd lead Newton in scoring. He'd hit 4 threes. You'd think there's the classic sort of 2-guard, shooting strokes good, size is good. He's about 6'3", 6'3.5", 6'4". Obviously, there's been a lot of talk even since he got to college about, his athletic strength, his physical strength, how advanced he is just in terms of his body. And that's obviously going to be really important for him. But then there'd be nights where he'd be Newton's leading rebounder, or he'd finish with 6 assists, or, nights where he'd blend it all together a little bit. I don't know if he ever had a triple-double in high school, but the point was he played on a really good team. So he was used to being around really good players that, can play at this level. And in at least one case already are going to play at the highest level in the NBA. But it was his ability to kind of, figure out in the moment how he could impact the game best for his team. If Newton needed him to score, he'd score. If they needed him to rebound, he'd rebound. If they needed him to create, he'd create. He was a really good defender as well. And guys like that, when you talk about an X factor, if you're Ja'Kai Newton, you're probably not, going to play 29 minutes a night this season. But if you're the kind of player that can figure out, on your own or in real time what you need from what your team needs from you, rather, even in a more limited role, you're going to find minutes. If you defend well, your coach is going to find minutes for you. If you rebound well, your coach is going to find minutes for you. If you can knock down shots when your team needs you to, your coach is going to find minutes for you. And that's what I think, like Ja'Kai Newton, obviously, the number one question is just his health. Can he get healthy? Can he stay healthy? How's the knee? How has he been able to kind of come through things as he's been able to ramp up activity? But the number two thing is, he's a redshirt freshman, but he's still a freshman. You don't want to expect too much of him. As he gets more comfortable at this level, is he still that same player that can be a lot of different things for Indiana? Because if he is, then I think he's going to find plenty of minutes.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, Zach?
Well, you said it. It's just a quiet weekend, so we're all just kind of taking a breath here before the madness restarts. So
enjoy it. I plan to.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim, as always.
Yep. Thank you, my friend. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Indiana's beat writer there. We've got lots more coming up with our good friend JD Campbell, the former sports information director, media relations director for Indiana men's basketball. Right after this, brought to you by Boost Fundraising. For those of you know of anyone looking for a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising is able to provide the opportunity to raise more money faster, offering the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, COYLE, and get a discounted fundraiser. We're back with JD Campbell after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly JD!
Jim, how you doing? How long are you on until 10:30?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah, like
sir.
I said, come on and talk about Walton.
I wish I wish I would have had you on earlier. We had someone that canceled, I didn't see that until it was too late because I was going through there. But how have you been? Got the
Good.
Royals jersey on, baby.
George Brett, man, late 70s.
I almost said, welcome in, George Brett. I almost did say that. That's funny.
Yeah, this is the late 70s road jersey that I'm repping today.
Was that the one he was wearing when he charged out of the dugout?
No. He had a button down one, and it said Royals across. It was kind of one that they had started wearing in the early 80s. The one that they wore when they won the World Championship. They had changed from the pullover to the button, and instead of Kansas City, it said Royals.
Still one of the great moments in sports. Never forget it. How's your summer or spring been?
Oh, it's been easy, just hanging out, figuring, seeing if there's anything that interests me. But if not, my wife and I are very happy doing what we're doing. And, I'm into the, obviously with my Braves, I'm into their season, which isn't going as well as we had thought that would. And excited for the NCAA baseball tournament.
Starting today here at 1:00.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The one thing that I always look at when you start these regionals is to see which top seed holds back their ace for game 2 that gets beat in the first round. Because it happened. Baseball, obviously I played it, and you would see that every year if a coach thought, I'm going to hold my ace back. to start the winners bracket game, and they end up getting beat in the first round.
And that's been Indiana's problem this year. Is their pitching has been a little not consistency has not always been there, I guess you'd say.
Well, pitchers suck today. They just do. I mean,
why is that?
Well,
this is a
because
great conversation, but yeah.
Let me put it this way: there are too many miles. Too many
Here we
miles.
got
They've
about
been
10
throwing.
seconds, guys. Here we go.
Okay, perfect. We'll pick this up.
APR financing for
Yeah, let's get
36
into
months
Walton.
on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Getting ready to send you off into a beautiful weekend. Brought to you by Fresh Fork. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available for you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse. From hearty proteins to fresh salads, the Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Enter online and let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code radio20 and get $20 off of your first order. Someone who does not need fresh and healthy, he's retired, so he can do whatever he wants. JD Campbell, the former men's basketball media relations director at IU and other places prior to that. But JD, how are you, brother? Missed you.
I'm doing great, man. Just enjoying the summer, getting ready to go back home to Las Vegas for a week next week for our national college sports communicators convention. So I get a chance to reconnect with all my buddies and some family, whatever, the few family members that are left that live out there. So, and then my son will come home from Nebraska and spend about 3 weeks with us. And so we're liable to decide to go on a road trip to some ballpark, doing things like that. So, other than that, I mean, it's good life, man. Every day is good. You know what I'm saying? Every day is good.
JD, a big baseball fan, sporting his George Brett jersey. If you can't see him, I almost introduced him as George Brett when I saw what he was wearing early on. But saw that it's one of the most iconic moments in sports. I can still think of when he ran out onto the field after having a home run taken away because the pine tar was it 18 inches?
Look, if you look at that bat, it looks like pine tar went all the way up to the barrel. I mean,
oh yeah,
it was not. It was not. It's a technicality that Billy Martin thought he was smarter than everybody else, and the umpires went with it, and then baseball said, "Nah, it's they just looked at it and said, okay, come back and play an inning."
Yeah,
on a day in August.
Incredible. And speaking of great icons, we lost one earlier this week in Bill Walton, who, if you're older, you know him as a former great college player. He was a great pro player. He won a championship with Larry Bird and the Celtics as NBA sixth man. And then to go on to a quote, colorful career as an analyst on basketball. His title is color man. You got play-by-play and a color man. He was the color man of all color men, if you want to talk about color, because I loved listening to him as long as he wasn't doing a game that I really wanted to watch and pay attention to. Other than that, I just usually laughed at how far off the trail he could go.
Well, we had the opportunity to work with him twice during my tenure, and both times in 2015 and 2020. It was 2020, the Maui Invitational. And in 2015, it was sponsored by Maui Jim, and they couldn't have had a better salesman than him, because he was always taking care of them. I know he had Tom meet the son of the president of Maui, Jim, after a game. And again, he just brought so much flavor to everything. But, one of the great things about what I was able to do and work with throughout the years is that you get to meet so many great people who just really have a passion for what they do. And the thing for me with Bill Walton personally is that he was the first college athlete that I became aware of at age 8 or 9. And because you didn't have the ESPNs and everybody that you have now watching TV, you kind of had a regional game. And that region out in the West Coast was always UCLA. And when I look now at the career that both he had and Lou Alcindor, I would say those two guys are players 1 and 1A as far as the greatest players in the history of college basketball when you look at their record. I mean, the thing that stood out for me about Bill Walton as a player was, again, they won 88 games in a row. And I don't care who you are, that's still difficult. That means you got to go on the road at least 21 times out of that, in conference play. Now, that would never happen now. The visibility is just too much. The talking is too much. The media and social media stuff is too much. But what a lot of people don't realize is it wasn't just an 88 game streak. It was 142 straight games, if you go back to his 3 years of high school, that he never lost. And I don't know if a record like that could ever be approached. But, you had a vision of him as this clean-cut guy, but he was really pushing Coach Wooden's buttons all the time. Tried to grow out his hair, and Wooden looked at him and said, "Hey, it's been nice. Good luck for you. Good luck to you wherever you go." And he went and got his hair cut. And then we saw, he went to Portland and led them to an NBA title. Then obviously had injuries, was with the Clippers, and then ended up with the Celtics where he finished his career. But then when you see him as an announcer, and he was doing NBA stuff before he got into the college basketball scene. And, he was much more, you want to say normal, but he was not the character that he became. And I will tell you this about him as an announcer. He was prepared. And I would spend, there aren't many announcers. Usually when we do TV, they would come to a shoot around the day of the game, or if we were in a tournament, they would come to one of our open practices and sit and talk with coaches and players. But with Bill, and again, there are a few, like Mel Kiper is another one. They literally wanted to spend an hour on the phone with the SID to just talk about the team and go over everything and look for little nuances. And I had the great pleasure of actually meeting Bill Walton at age 18 on the beach in San Diego when we were, my American Legion team was playing in a tournament in San Diego. And on Sunday we had a beach day, and he's from San Diego. He was there on the beach. I saw him in the parking lot and just introduced myself, and he was very gracious he had 3 little boys, and that was it. And then to come back and be able to get to work with him and get to know him in 2020, obviously at the Maui Invitational, we were in Asheville, and he and Jason Benetti were doing the games, I think remotely, if I remember correctly, because, that whole thing, that was a low fan turnout, and having to play the Maui Invitational in Asheville was certainly something new, but what a remarkable individual that he was. In fact, if you go back to when he was in high school, the Houston Rockets were the San Diego Rockets for a few years with Elvin Hayes, Calvin Murphy, and guys like that. And they didn't have NBA teams didn't have practice facilities like they do now. They would call a high school player named Bill Walton because they knew he had a key to get into his high school, Helix High School. And that's where the Rockets wanted, if they wanted to do, just pick up games or do whatever, they wanted to go to Helix. So he developed a relationship with these guys. And they would call, imagine that being hey, Jordy Hulse, can I get in Bloomington South? Something like that. I mean, that he had a key to it. So, and then obviously, you see this guy and he lives in it, he's got a teepee in his front yard and he's a Grateful Deadhead. And, I know a lot of people, I think during the Asheville one, a lot of people were commenting about his conversations and talking about Bruce Hornsby. Do you remember that at all? Do you remember him talking? Well, the funny thing about that is Bruce Hornsby's son was a really good college basketball player. And there was a game, I can't remember what year, with Tom, when Tom was here, Tom Crean. And after a game, Bruce Hornsby was back in our locker room and we were sitting there talking to him. And here's this great musician. And now we're talking college basketball. I just thought it was ironic that people were mad during that game that he was talking about Bruce Hornsby. So,
yeah, the reach and depth of his not basketball knowledge, just knowledge was crazy. Music, society. He could hold an in-depth conversation about anything. Unfortunately, for some people, he would do it during the middle of basketball games.
Well, but he was genuine.
Yes,
he was genuine and authentic.
I'm laughing about it because it was funny. Yeah. But the true ability, not many people can do that. Not many people can have that deep of a conversation about such a breadth of topics as he could.
Well, I know some of the guys that worked with him. I know Jason Benetti real well. We had him for a number of games.
He was basically been a sheep wrangler for the last several years. Is what I looked at him as trying to keep Walton wrangled in and pulled back in. It's like, okay, Bill, we got a basketball game here.
Well, and one of my former assistants at IU, Nate Weekers, is in charge of basketball communications at Arizona. And Bill's main thing, we only had him because we did the Maui. We never had him for any other, particular events. But at Arizona, he did a lot of Arizona games. And Nate told me, every time that he did a game, there was a certain restaurant we would go to and we would call. And if it was a 7:30 game or whatever, they would ask if they would stay open late because Bill wanted to come over. And people did it. People did it. And he had that kind of impact. The SID staff would go out with Bill. And, fortunately for us, and especially for me in my career path, there are so many different people that you get to meet and work with. And Bill Walton, obviously being my first hero in college athletics at age 8 or 9, that just really coming for full circle. And for me, and I've just been fortunate to have the opportunity to work with so many of the greatest Dick Enberg was the guy I got to work with in 2008. We had a game at Michigan.
Former IU grad.
Oh yeah. But it's like, I listened to Dick Enberg call the California Angels back when you listen to Nolan Ryan games. because you thought he might throw a no-hitter. But what a lot of people and again, old show for old guys only, there was a show called Sports Challenge. Do you remember that show where they would have the teams on and the teams would compete against each other in trivia? It was great. And he was also the voice of UCLA during those years. And so, getting a chance to work with Dick Enberg and Billy Packer was another one and Vern Lundquist. I mean, I could go on and on about all the people. The one thing I will tell you this, in my job, I absolutely can say that there's not one play-by-play or color guy that I didn't enjoy. And they're great at what they do because they really do prepare. Really. And but I say I put Walton and Mel Kiper in a different stratosphere because they wanted to talk to you for an hour before they even talk to the coach.
Yeah, they're the breadth of the knowledge that they have to have for what they do is just crazy stupid. I was fortunate. I had the opportunity to work with Bill Walton once. I was a peon just starting in sports media. I was working for CBS. It was in the early 90s when there was a site at Louisville for the tournament, and he was one of the on-air talent. And I remember I had to go get lunch for everybody. Quinn Buckner was one of the talent that was down there. Everybody else is getting a normal, get me a chicken sandwich, no tomatoes. Get me a ham sandwich, yada, yada, yada. Let's see, can you find me a tofu? He gives me this, and I'm like thinking, dude, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. Where the hell am I going to find that? I got the luckiest thing that ever happened to me right off of outside of the Kentucky Fairgrounds where Freedom Hall is. I just happened to see this place that I knew. I'm like going, oh, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I go in there and I'm like, boom, I nailed it. And I couldn't believe it, but I'd helped him do some other things. He had just gotten his ankles fused right before that. And I remember he had a box of new shoes sent in, but after the tournament was over, I come home one day and my roommate says, he looks at me with this weird look. He says, you've got a message from Bill Walton on the machine. For those of you that are young, we used to have machines that took our phone messages, but it was just wild. He was just very genuine. I mean, not many people would take the time to make that phone call after all of that was done, and he did. So he was truly a genuine guy and genuinely going to be missed. We've got JD Campbell with us. We've got to take a break. We'll be back to talk more, talk some baseball. Yogi Ferrell joining Indiana's TBT team. The TBT team is something to look forward to as well. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida. Whether you're already in the area or you will be, the Ugly Grouper is much more than just unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. It's family friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them we sent you. Just go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Back with more with JD Campbell right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. And I know I saved that stupid little cassette, but it's been lost to the annals of time. I don't know where it is anymore. I wish I still had that.
You know, another guy that called me once that, again, and these are guys that people can imitate. I can't imitate people anymore, it seems like. But I got a call from Lee Corso. We were hosting game day at Bowling Green. And in his distinctive voice, he wanted the head of our female mascot because that's what he was going to wear when he picked us to beat Northern Illinois in that game. And he was another one that, another guy that just, again, that's the one thing about that profession is, these guys are really accommodating, and even when they're traveling the country, and a lot of them can't come to the practice the day before or even the shoot around in the morning, they're just so respectful of a coach's time. And that's what makes, my job, that's one of the highlights of my job, is getting to work with so many people who are great at what they do, but yet they represent themselves with humility. And, there's no self-importance to what they do. And that's a great part of my job.
Yeah, that gets me to thinking, what a Lee Corso to Kurt Signetti. Boy, that's a major change in characters for Indiana football. I wasn't around Corso when he was a football coach, but I know he was still a character then. I've seen some pictures of stuff he did. He brought down that double-decker bus down into practice one day. It's like, who has the wherewithal to think to call a timeout? There you go, John Boy's on it. Look at that double-decker bus, JD. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
He had that brought down. That's Memorial Stadium there. And then who has the wherewithal to think to call a timeout in the first quarter at the shoe against Ohio State to take a picture of the scoreboard because you're up 7-0? Who can even think of that?
Here we go, guys. 10
those
seconds.
kind of things are, again,
a part of the Wild.
I got to cut you off,
is
JD.
your
Sorry.
butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Get ready to send you out into a beautiful weekend, at least the start of one. Today is going to be absolutely incredible. Chamber of Commerce weather, very temperatures down, very comfortable sleeping, no humidity. It's awesome. Joined by J.D. Campbell, former media relations director at Indiana University for men's basketball, and many other places prior to that. But we've been having different conversations about Bill Walton, and then he brought up Lee Corso while we were in the break, and I just kind of got to thinking, boy, look at where Indiana had Lee Corso as a football coach at one time. Now you got Kurt Signetti. Those are kind of two polar opposites as far as their approach to things in life. Kurt Signetti is a very, very serious type of guy. Lee Corso was, even in coaching, he was kind of crazy, man. He brought down that double-decker bus that we've shown the picture of so many times. And I was thinking, who on God's green earth could ever have the wherewithal to think when you're in the middle of a game at Ohio State in the first quarter to call a timeout, gather your team, have a photographer come over and take a picture of your team and the scoreboard because you're beating Ohio State? How does that even come into someone's brain? But that's why we've been able to enjoy all the things we were able to enjoy with Lee Corso on SportsCenter over these last many, many years. And I always enjoyed him.
Well, I also think too, back then, now you do something and it immediately has legs, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be, I think of a play in the last week that I saw. There was a center fielder in a high school game. I don't know if you saw this, Jim, but he fielded a ground ball, and the way the play worked out, they thought they were going to get him in a rundown, and the guy ran past second, went to third. Nobody was covering third, and the center fielder ran from center fielder, dove at home plate to get the guy out. I've never seen an outfielder tag a guy out at home. It was just the way the defense moved. The catcher came up to cover third, and the runner just blew by him, so there was nobody at home. That's where we are now. Back then, things don't have the legs that it used to. We used to have to wait till Sunday afternoon, Bill Fleming's show, to watch highlights from across the country. And now you're seeing them in game. Press conferences were not televised live the way they are now. And that's just, it's evolved. Back then, Lee Corso probably thought, I got to do whatever I can do to get people to talk about Indiana football because Indiana basketball was so dominant. And so you had personalities like that. I think in college basketball, think of Lefty Drizel. Let's have a midnight madness. We're going to practice at 12:01 the first day we can. And you see, what that turned into at a lot of different places. Coach, it's hard for a coach to have that kind of personality today because you're going to have people that, again, because the analytics tell you, hey, maybe if we go a little negative on somebody, that increases readership or gets people to react. And that's what happens. So he might have got killed for it with today's media, but those kind of personalities are just fantastic. But unfortunately, it's really hard to have that today with all the scrutiny, and most coaches really try to be buttoned down and are not as maybe secure enough to be a little bit out there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, because if you can do it today, then you are extraordinarily confident inside your own skin, because it's too easy to be lambasted and scrutinized and just raked over the coals, if not.
Oh, there's no question about it. And but again, everything takes on greater importance now with the amount of visibility. Whatever gets covered, whether it be professional or college sports, now you're seeing entities needing 2 or 3 reporters to cover an event where it used to be just one. But then there was a wider range of things covered for years and years when the newspaper had more pages. You could find out about, not only a lot of the sports at IU, but you look at this is the first year I've lived here for 17 years. First year I ever heard anything about Indiana State basketball, except when they beat us, in Archie's first game. Things are just anonymously going away. And the things that they cover, like IU basketball, IU football, Purdue basketball, Purdue football, Notre Dame football, way, you're talking about recruits today.
Yep. Speaking of which, and we're almost out of time, but we're going to have you back on next week again. Maybe all summer, because there's just so many things that we don't get to talk about during the year because there's so much going on. And now that things are a little slower, it's not like they're coming to a halt, but there's so many things we don't get to talk about. But coming up on Sunday night, JD, the All-Star Series starts. The Junior All-Stars versus Kentucky at Scottsburg. Won a state title this year. Congratulations to the Warriors. And then on Tuesday, the juniors versus the seniors at Kokomo. And I'm looking forward to that game because of the class, this year's class of juniors, extraordinarily good, led by guys like Trent Sisley and Braylon Mullins, whose recruiting has just gone skyrocketed. But looking forward to those games, and hopefully you have a great weekend. You grill out? Are you a griller?
Every day.
I gotta get you some steaks from from our good friends over at Chop Shop. Then
I
get
appreciate
you
it,
taken
man.
care of. Absolutely, we'll get that to you, JD. I can't thank you enough, man. As always, it is always a blessing to have you on with that vast knowledge.
Well, I thank you, Jim, for having me on. And like I say, just, enjoying life. I think we all need to enjoy life, take the stress away. Stress is poison, man.
Absolutely is, and we look forward to doing this next week again if your schedule allows for it, and a little bit more time to talk about some other fun things.
Well,
To
just
get into
hit me
some
up.
of the fun things.
Hit me up Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, because Thursday I'm in Vegas, and I won't be up this early. It is 7:30. I might be up, but
Larry listens to. I can't believe it. Larry's on with us live every day. I can't
Gotta get
believe
out,
it. I'm
guys.
like, Larry, you're crazy. But all right, we've got to go real back. Big thanks to Zach Osterman, as always, from the Indy Star for joining us, and of course, JD Campbell, former men's Indiana basketball media relations director, and at many other places as well, and just sports knowledge extraordinaire. We'll have to come up with a new title for you. But big thanks to JD, and most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we'd have no reason to be here. We're back on Monday to do this all again, and look forward to having you with us. Thanks, John, to the producer as well. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat